When learning new exercises, especially with advanced calisthenics exercises, it's essential to use progressions. A progression is typically an easier version of the exercise you're trying to accomplish, or an exercise that helps train the muscles or movement patterns you'll need for that exercise. For example, in my Skin the Cat or wheel pose videos, I show that in order to perform those exercises, I had to first perform a variety of progressions and movement patterns before I could attempt to do even one rep or second of the exercise. If I had begun by trying out Skin the Cat and failing to invert, I would have quickly given up and assumed it was something I could never do. An important reason to do progressions is to ensure proper form. If you're not strong or mobile enough for an exercise, you'll likely compensate and use the wrong muscles or overextend an area that is not flexible enough and end up with pain or an injury. I've certainly done this many times in the past, especially with my wrists, and dealt with sometimes weeks of pain as a consequence. Negatives are essentially performing the eccentric part of an exercise, or simply only half of it. For some exercises, you can start at the top and perform the negative, and then return to the top as easily as possible. For other exercises, using a hop instead of finding a way to get to the top is also an option. Pull-ups are an example of somewhere that I often used negatives. If I had a chair or other object, I'd get to the top position and then slowly lower down and focus on my form. Without an object, I'd simply start the exercise with a hop, but depending how hard the exercise is, that initial hop can be enough to break the form down before you even begin. It's important to be honest with yourself about how capable you are and how many reps you can actually perform properly. Bands are priceless to modify the difficulty of certain exercises. Depending on their length and thickness, they'll lower or raise the perceived weight you are lifting. For example, with a scapula push-up, they'll actually make it harder. For an assisted dip, they will make it easier. It takes some planning and sometimes creativity to find places to mount the bands if you are exercising from home or in a park, and it might take some trial and error before you find the appropriate band sizes that you'll need, but it's well worth the time to find bands that assist just enough to keep the exercise challenging without breaking form. Another benefit of the bands is that they can be used for a variety of low-intensity mobility or rehabilitative exercises. If performing negatives or using bands is still too difficult, then a related exercise should be used. For example, performing a negative or banded variation of the human flag is still extremely difficult, and instead a related exercise like the side plank can be used. Sometimes there isn't enough mobility to perform the exercise in the first place, and even if you have enough strength, you can't reach the proper form. Incorporating mobility exercises while also improving strength is a good strategy to be able to not only perform the reps needed, but to maintain proper form throughout the exercise. Yoga is a great starting point for mobility, but it's not for everyone. Stretching can be boring and tedious, but I find mobility exercises more interesting and very effective. Cali Move's mobility program is excellent and I'd highly recommend it. At the end of this video, I'll also mention my Fundamentals video series, which includes mobility exercise demonstrations at the beginner level. I say this all the time, but it's so important it bears repeating. Record yourself to see your form. It's very likely that you think your form is better than it is. For example, while recording my Fundamentals video series, I had to pay extra attention to my form, because when it was even slightly wrong, it was very obvious on video. Even just using selfie mode on a smartphone is good enough for a general idea of your form. Recording a video of your full set will also help you pinpoint where your form starts to break down. Ideally, you will stop the exercise before you even get to this point. Exercising every day over long periods of time is likely going to result in loss of strength rather than gains. I've been guilty of doing this, and when you enjoy exercise, it's very tempting to over-exercise. But having time to not only take breaks, but to perform restorative exercise like meditation, breathing, or energy work can be beneficial to help your body repair and grow and be ready for the next big workout. There's nothing worse than seeing no progress at all towards an exercise. At the other end of the spectrum, when consistently exercising, you might one day try that super difficult exercise and be shocked to see that you are able to perform one or more reps. Between those two ends of the spectrum exist all the progressions that you should be learning to smooth out the path between failure and success.